Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Code and the Coding Coders Who Code It. I'm your host, Drew Bragg, and today I am joined by the one and only Collin Jilbert. Collin, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. My name is Collin Jilbert, like you said, perfectly. Let's see, I am a Rails developer. I currently work with Chris Oliver at Go Rails. And let's see, I've been programming now for going into my third year. It seems like it's been forever, but it's a very short amount of time. But yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Awesome. So for those of you who are new to the show, I'm going to ask Collin 3 questions. I'm going to ask him what he's currently working on, what kind of blockers he's having, or if he doesn't have a current blocker, what's a recent blocker he had and how did he solve it? And then I'm going to ask him to share something interesting or cool that he has recently discovered or learned about or even built. And it doesn't have to be coding related. It's a pretty open-ended question. So with that being said, Collin, what are you working on?
Before we get into that, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Any relation to the Bragg apple cider vinegar family? Is that you? That's you?
No. I mean, not that I'm aware of, at least. I am familiar with that brand, but to the best of my knowledge, there's no actual relation there.
Yeah. Well, I see that they make it in California and not Oklahoma, so I figured there was no relation.
Yeah. Also, because I'm, from Philadelphia, despite what Jason Charnes will have you believe. So actually, though, what are you working on?
Yeah. Do you want something work related that I'm working on or personal? Does it matter? Whatever
you're most excited to talk about.
Yeah. Let's see. I'll give 2 little things. At work, I just wrapped up adding like an H capture for us over in the Jumpstart Pro marketing site to try and cut down on some spam over there. And I think we're actually going to be upstreaming that to Jumpstart Pro itself. So that's cool. That'll be like my first real contribution to Jumpstart. So I'm excited about that. I'm also working on building out a messaging system for Jumpstart. And it'll be kind of like I think we'll kind of go with an opt-in approach to that. Like it won't ship with it. Maybe it'll be a branch that you can pull in if you need that. So I'm really excited about that because I'm going to get to dive into Turbo some more, which I actually haven't had a lot of time to dive into that. So I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. So what's it like working for Chris? Is it kind of what you were expecting or is it pretty off the wall kind of stuff?
Yeah. C is an option, all of the above.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, it might be close to how you would imagine it. It's intimidating to an extent, right? Like live coding in front of him is that's an experience I still deal with from time to time. Like my brain completely shuts down when I know he's looking at my screen. So it's funny. I try and joke about it to, get past it and move on. But it's great. He's got a lot of insight and a lot of experience. So just seeing him work has been amazing for me. We bounce around a lot, kind of from different project to project. But yeah, it's really good. Like I said, seeing him work because probably the biggest takeaway I've gotten from working with him so far is diving into the source code to try and solve your problems that way.
Yeah. Which
has been a huge game changer and eye opener for me. And I think within the first month of me joining, we did that and we ended up committing a change for something in the Pagey gem. I believe it was Pagey. Yes. And that was just a result of, we ran into an issue. We thought, it could have been something that we did, but before we, stopped there and just, spun in circles for who knows how long, we hopped into the source and found a bug in, the code there, submitted a PR for that, and it was merged in. So I think it's important to do. And I don't really know how many people do it. I've never really done it before working with Chris, and I find myself doing it more and more now. And it's great because, it exposes you to a lot of coding techniques and things that you perhaps wouldn't normally see, and just you get to see the way others write code and pick up little, quirks or whatever that they use. So it's a great tactic.
I completely agree with that. I've told many people, and I think I might have even mentioned it on the last show, but that was the biggest thing I got from watching all the Go Rails screencasts, and what I feel really was the thing that helped get me from mid into senior and now staff engineer was Chris is always so willing to just jump into source code and not let a lack of documentation on something like prohibit him from using it. He's always opening those things up. And in the screencast, he's like, I was wondering about this and I opened up this and this is how I found out that this needed to change. So I opened a PR, or, I found this undocumented feature, or if we dive into Rails, you'll see what's actually going on under the hood. And it was eye opening to me at the time. And then when I started doing it, I felt like it was exponential growth in my skills. The moment I started to really go and open these things up, I just became a much better engineer so much faster than I had been prior to doing that. So I can't imagine how awesome it is to get it from the source itself, but all of his screencasts that he does that in, I always feel like I get a lot of value from. But that's really awesome.
Yeah, it really does seem like a superpower, and in fact, I'll share this little secret with you. I think Chris is the only other one I've told about, but it's actually kind of inspired me to want to come up with a talk idea to or maybe a workshop at a conference or something like, hey, let's dive into some source and let's see what we learn from doing so. Yeah. Because it's been a huge, like I said, it's been a huge game changer for me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I think that would make a great talk. I'm always interested in the talks that are giving you those. This is not a little tip or trick. This is a very big tip or trick, but especially the ones that give you little tips and tricks that just improve your workflow or make it easier to debug something are always really popular and some of my favorites. So a talk or a workshop about orienting yourself into open source projects when you're not necessarily to contribute, but more to figure out how does this thing work, that would make for an awesome addition to any conference.
Yeah, I think so as well. And who knows, that's not what happened with Chris and I, a byproduct of doing so might be, you might get that contribution to Rails or whatever, that you're looking for. So it's great.
Yeah, I've gotten at least one Rails contribution that way where I was like, surely this is fixed. This is no longer a bug in Rails. And nope, there it was still in main. And now there's a PR that got merged and there you go.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, congrats.
Super cool.
That's awesome. I think I saw that actually a while back.
Yeah, the session keys. Yep. That was we were on 5.0 at the time, so I was really surprised when I opened main, which is like 7.1 beta or 7.1 alpha, and I was like, holy shit, this is still an issue. No one has fixed this. We must be doing something goofy if we're the only people that have found it, but I'm going to fix it anyway.
Yeah. Nice.
But that's cool. So last episode, I actually had Chris on. So he did kind of beat you to the punch on some of the interesting blockers that you guys have run into recently. But what have been some of the most interesting challenges that you've run into thus far?
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, the big one for me has just been kind of getting my bearings among all the different projects that we have going on. My last job I was at, it was just the one application. So, after a while, you tend to get a good foundation in that project and you can move pretty seamlessly through it. But now I've expanded out to 4 different things that we're working on all the time, so it's a lot to take in. So it was kind of a blocker at first. I guess it was a blocker. I don't know. I mean, kind of, just kind of slowly getting some ground in each one, but I've definitely felt like as of late I've started to get over that one. I have a good non-work related blocker. I have a side project I've been working on. That's have you ever seen the Laravel telescope package that they have?
No, unlike Remote Ruby, I do not delve into a lot of Laravel. Not because I don't find it interesting. It is a pretty interesting framework, and I do actually want to dive into it a little bit more just because it does seem so cool, and Jason and company make it sound really awesome. But no, I haven't really dove in too much.
Yeah, Chris is the one who pointed me in that direction. It's because I was doing something on a side project not too long ago, and I was combing through Rails logs, and I was like, I really kind of hate this. I wish I just had access to the bits that I really wanted to see right now instead of having to swim through all the logs, right? So I started just writing a little script. I was like, I'm just going to hook into this grab the bits that I want and I'm going to, pipe them into a file or something. And I'll just look at my file for the stuff I need.
Sure.
So I hacked on that for like a weekend, maybe. And I think I was telling Chris about it on like a Monday or something. And he was like, "Oh, you should check out Laravel Telescope." So I did. And it's like a really beautiful UI for seeing, like what's going on in your app. You can see all the requests that are coming in with the parameters. You kind of like navigate through different areas from, those little points that are coming in. So I was like, "Oh, this is exactly what I want." So I started building my own version of that. And I was using the active support instrumentation stuff. Have you seen that or used that any?
Yeah, I've used it a little bit, just mostly internal stuff, not to build any open source, but I've dabbled with it. We hook into it for a few things.
Nice. Yeah. So I was trying to do some query stuff to where I could like store query information, but I was hitting like connection timeouts because I'm like trying to read from the database while trying to write to it for my stuff, so it was stuck a bunch. And though I haven't quite gotten over that, I did get around it by, instead of just like having all of the attributes for that come in, just like selecting a few, right? And whatever I selected, or I guess I should say whatever I didn't select, ended up being what's causing the timeouts, because I was able to get some of the information that I wanted, but not all of it yet. So I've gotten a little bit over my blocker, but I think it's like the point that drove home to me was like, when I was in my boot camp, I used to tell all the other people in the boot camp with me this a lot, like take baby steps, like don't try and make huge leaps to like get to your end goal, like just take little small steps. And I think I kind of forgot that for myself a little bit, so it was a good reminder that, oh, right, I was able to unblock myself somewhat by just going back and taking these little baby steps. So that's my big breakthrough lately, that mental reminder of taking baby steps.
Yeah, that is always a good reminder. It's really easy to get super hyped about something, especially when you have the full scope of the project in your head, and then you just start building right away and you forget to like take a step back and build it incrementally. You solve a lot of your own problems by breaking it down and solving small problems rather than trying to do everything at once. So always a good reminder there.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've covered what you're working on. We've covered your recent-ish blockers. What's something cool or interesting that you have recently worked on, discovered? I mean, I'm sure that the list is endless working with Chris. I don't know how much hidden stuff he has, but even just his open source stuff is always such an interesting thing to like look at the code and use. And he puts a lot of time and effort into making sure his APIs are fun to work with. So is there anything out there that we haven't seen that you wanted to like spill the beans on? Give us the juice, the dirty secrets of Go.
Right. Yeah, that's going to cost you. No, I think for the most part, I think you're seeing it all happen in real time. If you're checking out anything on GitHub, I mean, obviously Jumpstart Pro is a private repository, but everything else is there and open. I don't think there's any secret sauce in the works at the moment right now. But I think in the future, we're definitely going to have some big things coming. I know we have some big plans for GoRails, doing some revamping over there, the UI stuff. We definitely want to do that. And we also want to add some new sections to it, more like some, kind of guided paths through things, like a learning path, if you will. Right. So we want to make it more of a, this could be maybe somewhat of a fill-in for a boot camp, right? If maybe you don't have the money to go to a boot camp, right? You could this could be a great resource for you. So some of that stuff is what's, on the roadmap for the future. I'm also I have like a big, long-term project of trying to get GoRails onto Jumpstart because it's not currently on there, right? So that's any downtime I have where I'm not working on any kind of other projects that we have under our umbrella. That's my big overarching project to try and get done, which is huge. So it's fun though, but it's a big one. I do have an interesting discovery, completely non-programming related, but I found it fascinating, want to share it with you. Have you ever heard of cloud brightening?
Cloud brightening. No,
Yeah.
have not.
So this is like some geoengineering thing, and they're like their plan is to. I think they're like working on like how they can do this successfully, but the plan is to like use water and some salts of some sort to shoot up into clouds to clean them, to make them whiter, to reflect more of like the solar radiation back out to space, and in turn cool our planet. Yeah, I thought it was way fascinating.
That is crazy. I have never heard.
Yeah.
How did you stumble upon that? What rabbit hole at 2 a.m. were you going down on what site?
Yeah, no rabbit hole here. There's I played drums too, so there was a guest on a drumming podcast I was listening to, and his friend who helped him like build his studio at his house. He's like an engineering wizard apparently. He is like kind of leading this project for whatever country he's in, I forget, but they're like he's leading the research that they're doing on this project. So I was like, wow, that sounds amazing.
That does sound amazing. That has to be. I wonder who thought of that. Like, how do you think of? I'm going to brighten clouds to help with reflecting solar radiation. That is not. Right? It's not how my brain works. At least I can do programming all right, but no.
Yeah, yeah. They were talking about like attaching these big like spouts, like spraying spouts on like ocean going vessels too, and to like they're out there already, why not use them to do this. I think they were like they're going to use vessels and then put like big towers in places too. This is all like speculating, like they're kind of brainstorming things right now, and they also like they said they have to be very careful about how they do this. Would make sense, right? Because like you don't want to cool down one spot too much and then like have the whole thing like iced over or something,
Yeah, I mean, that's, I don't know if that's the problem we have just about yet, at least not here. It's like 100 degrees today. How is it down in Louisiana?
Yeah, it's about there. I think it's like 98 or so. It is humid and thick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you get the fun heat, the walking through soup heat down there.
Yeah, exactly.
I did want to actually take a quick step back just because you were talking about one of your blockers being kind of orienting yourself to the bunch of different projects that you have going on. Mm-hmm. And I sort of did that at my last job. We kind of were brought in on some projects, so I would have to get up to speed fast. We also maintained a couple of projects, but now here within 3, we're really just responsible for 1, maybe 2 repositories. So what have you found to be an effective way of navigating different repositories and getting up to speed quickly?
Yeah, well, I think there's some separation that needs to be kind of stated here. Jumpstart, and it's like that one in itself isn't too bad because that one's just kind of a standard Rails app. So that one's a little bit easier to kind of navigate around. But working on a lot of the gems and stuff's a little bit different, or at least for me it was, because professionally I've never worked on one before. I have like a few small ones I've made myself. So just kind of wrapping my head around that and thinking about like how this is going to work when someone else plugs it into their app. That's been the big hurdle there. And really the way I got over, or I'm starting to get over and make progress there, is just to start at the beginning, like drop into lib, notice.rb. Let's see what all is coming in. Okay, it's requiring all these other files in the notice folder. Or, and maybe there's some other code that maybe sets some configuration below that at the bottom. I'll just read through it, line by line, and kind of just check myself and make sure I understand what's going on. And then start moving to some of the other files within the, another folder, and start seeing, okay, I got this, here's how this is interacting with this other file. And just really taking my time to step through it, and also just spinning up a little play Rails app and pull a notice in. And as I read code in the gem, I'll try and, use some of that in the little project that I'm dealing with, or, on the side. So I have like kind of the user experience with it while I gain like the behind the curtain experience there. But it's really just that, just stepping line by line, kind of file by file, and just making sure I understand what's going on and navigate through everything.
Right. Do you have like a sandbox app kind of just all the time that you just throw stuff at? Do you spin up a new one every time? Do you have like a template that you use, or is, how do you get that sandbox ready?
So far, I've just been Rails new and everywhere. Just starting from scratch. I figure, it's the least amount of other things to have to think about it, in that moment. So let's just start it up, pull a notice, start from scratch, or pull in whatever, and start from scratch and go build.
Okay. That's awesome. I've watched a couple of your screencasts now. How are you liking doing those?
I love it, to be honest. I had never done any until I started with Chris. I was definitely nervous about doing the first one, but honestly, I love it. I loved helping my fellow students when I was in the boot camp. I loved helping explain things to them and try and help teach. So it's great for me. I've really found that I really love it. I was super nervous doing the first one, but if I wouldn't have screwed up, I would have had that one done in 2 takes, actually. The second time I went to go do it, I was recording Discord the whole time. And I went through the whole thing, 30 minutes of it. And I was like, that was it. I hit, stop on the recording. And I was like, why is that showing Discord in the little, movie maker thing? And I was like, oh no, I hit play. It's the audio is me all talking, but it's just Chris sending me stuff through Discord. And I was like, no. So I had to redo it, but it was fine. But yeah, I love it. I hope others are enjoying them as well. So far, I've gotten a lot of good feedback. So I'm very appreciative of that.
Yeah, good feedback. Any feedback's always good. But
for sure,
good feedback's great too. It's a nice motivator. Are you coming up with the topics for the screencast, or is Chris saying, "Hey, I want you to do one on this"?
Yeah, I've come up with all my own topics so far. Okay. I think the only one I didn't come up with on my own was kind of a joint effort. I think it was the doing a has one through a has many. Mm-hmm. That video, I don't know if you watched that one. That was one that we encountered working on a project together, pairing on something, and we were like, "Oh, this would be a good topic." So that one we kind of did together. But the others are just ones that I know that I struggled with,
right?
In the beginning, and that I've seen other people, that seem kind of hazy around too. So yeah, mostly coming up on my own. I really like doing the Ruby specific ones.
Yeah.
So I kind of think, I haven't told this to Chris, but he'll hear it now. But I kind of think maybe I'm going to try to maybe carve that niche out for myself. Maybe take more of the Ruby specific screencasts on. Maybe definitely do some real stuff every now and then. But yeah, I like teaching the Ruby stuff. Rails is fine too.
No, sure. I mean, the Ruby skills are super important too, because then you've got transportable skills. If you end up going somewhere where, Stripe uses Ruby, they're not necessarily a Rails shop. There's places starting to use Hanami, and really you could get away with using Sinatra for stuff. So having the Ruby skills and understanding what's Ruby and what's Rails and how to use Ruby effectively is a great skill to have. Decoupling it from Rails. You can still build so much stuff with Ruby.
Yeah, totally. In fact, I have a book right now I'm going through. I have a huge collection of old Ruby books. So I have this one from 2013. I don't know if you can see that.
Build awesome command line applications in Ruby 2. Nice.
Yes. So
that is awesome.
Senior Dave Copeland there. But yeah, there's some great stuff in this book. I've learned about so many different things, standard lib things that I had no idea about from this so far. It's great. I could build a pretty cool command line app now, just using standard Ruby. It's amazing. I think there's a lot of power in Ruby that I don't really know how many the vast majority of our community really leverage. I mean, I know there's people out there doing things with it, but on the grand scale, I don't really know where we fall on that, how much pure Ruby is being done,
Yeah. I would be curious to know that too. Like it's you know, you always struggle to be like, hey, is this built-in Ruby or is this active support when you're going through Rails stuff?
Right.
Sometimes you don't even know until you're like, oh yeah, I know how to do this, and you do it, and Ruby's like, no, that's not a thing, and you're like, oh crap, that was active support. Actually, I don't know Ruby that well. There are things like that I still run into, but
Oh yeah.
I think also like if people are trying to level up their skills as even just a Rails developer, getting really good at Ruby and knowing how to do it in Ruby, and then it makes it easier to understand how Rails is like, okay, cool, we're going to handle this for you and that for you, so you don't have to. You have a much better idea of what's going on under the hood. Makes debugging, at the very least, it makes debugging a lot easier, but then it's easy to build your own gems, and then you can include those in your application and things like that. So I think you're probably right. There's probably a small portion of the Rails devs out there that are like strong Rubyists, but leveling up your Ruby skills, huge way to level up your Rails skills indirectly, but and then like I said, transportable, right? You're not just the Rails devs anymore. You can do Hanami or something else that, bridge down, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, that's cool. I definitely love the screencasts that are more Ruby focused and less Rails, because it's also, Ruby's slightly more stable than Rails. Some of Chris's older videos is like, yeah, that's not a thing anymore. Can't do that in Rails. But usually the Ruby stuff is like, hey, there's a new way to do that, but the old way still works. So
yeah, usually pretty solid for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Ruby is incredibly stable. I think in Nick's Ruby Archaeology talk at RailsConf this past year, he said that I believe it was WiseGem Bloopsophone, which was written on Ruby 1.8. He said he ran it. Name. Yeah, right. It's just a gem for making music with Ruby.
Yeah,
perfect name for a gem coming from Y.
Right.
But he said he was able to run it on Ruby 3 with no changes to the code. Like that's how stable Ruby's like internals are. Is that like, what was written in 1.8 is, with very few exceptions, going to run just fine in Ruby 3.0.
Yeah, which is
not
totally
the case for Rails so much.
Right? Yeah.
That's why no one has courses or talks on upgrading your Ruby version of your app. Rails upgrades, on the other hand, is a completely different animal. Yeah, I have found that out firsthand, unfortunately. But no, it blows my mind, like how much stuff. It's like, this was written in like 7 versions of Ruby ago. Still runs fine though. Wild to me.
I know.
Super awesome.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Yeah, like a lot of the older books that I go through, most of the code just works, unless like the package, has been completely abandoned. Most of it works. So, it's amazing. I'm trying to think what was one I ran into. There was one book I was going through. They were using something in Fiddle that had kind of fallen off and wasn't being used anymore. So I kind of got stuck at a certain point in the book on that one. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go with it for now. And I'll try and figure out something later on for that part. But yeah, for the most part, it's all still there and all still valid. It's wild.
All right. Yeah, it's super cool. What are you most excited for in Rails 7? Like, I mean, now that not excited for, I guess that makes it sound like it's not out yet. It's out. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. What have you been most excited about getting to use in Rails 7?
Yeah. I mean, I really just like the ease of being able to pick up front what you're going to use in your new app. Are you going to use import maps? You want to use Tailwind or Bootstrap or, ESBuild? Like, I really like how easy it is to set that up front just on the command line. Definitely Hotwire. Yeah, it's been great digging into. Like I said at the beginning, I'm kind of just really getting to dig into it more now. Yeah, I dug into it initially when it first came out, but that was months ago. So I've kind of forgotten all that since then because I haven't been
Right.
using it much. So I'm definitely excited to dig more into that. That's probably the big thing that I'm most interested in right now.
Yeah, I think that's the big one. It's all the Hotwire stuff. It's super
Yeah.
exciting to see people being. I mean, there are teams. I've gotten recruiter emails of more than one company going, "Hey, we're bringing on extra Rails devs because we're getting rid of our React SPA and going all in on Hotwire and stuff like that." And that's
wow.
really exciting. And I've only gotten to do it like dabbling on the side, little side projecty stuff. We're not there at work yet, but man, I dream of the future, being able to implement that kind of stuff at work. It's so cool.
Yeah, I know you do. I'm pulling for you, man. Y'all gonna get there.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually. So you unfortunately missed RailsConf this past year, or this past
did.
month, I guess it was only a month ago.
I'm super bummed.
Yeah, dude, I was pumped to hang out, but life gets in the way. Are you planning on going to RubyConf?
I'm definitely planning on it because it's only a state over, so I can make that drive pretty easily.
You say only a state. Texas is a big state. How far is it for you?
From here, I think it's like 5 or 6 hours. Houston, right?
Okay. Yeah,
I think 5 or 6 hours. So if I could drive to Denver from here, I got Houston in the bag.
Yeah, that is definitely an improvement over, I'm sure, what Denver was. How far is Atlanta from you?
I think Atlanta's about 8 hours.
Okay, so still drivable for sure. And that's where RailsConf, in case you missed the announcement, RailsConf 2023 will be in Atlanta.
Yeah. So right now, I'm definitely planning on attending both. I like driving over flying if I can. I just like getting out there on the road and seeing the sights and cruising around. Plus, I'm not packed on a steel bird, with people to my left and right. There's that. But definitely planning on attending. I was going to ask you, was there any throw burrito incidents at RailsConf?
So I don't know. Actually, we so I will link.
Skip game night. Are you banished from game night? Because
I'm not banished. No. It was accidental. I'm still allowed there. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about here, I will link to the Twitter post that Collin is referring to, where we caused a fair amount of property destruction with burritos. But so the Go Rails get together dinner was the same night as board game night. So my plan was I'll go to the Go Rails thing, I'll hang out there for a little bit, and then I'll go to board game night. And then there was just there was too many people that I wanted to talk to and hang out with at the Go Rails thing that I just stayed there all night. We closed that place down in the rooftop bar. So I missed it. I was bummed. I actually packed games this time. I was ready to go. And then I just was having too much fun. So I heard it was a good time. That's awesome. It was. Yeah, it was. There was a lot of good after parties. I forget. I think it might have been Honey Badger or maybe Sidekick. Someone put on an arcade, rented out a portion of an arcade with a bar in it, and that was a lot of fun. Old school arcade and pinball machines, and there was just a bunch of Rubyists chilling, and they had some food and good beers, and that was awesome. The View component. GitHub View component team put on a little happy hour after the first day. Yeah, I think it was after the first day. And that was blast. I got to meet Joel Hawksley and pick his brain on things and met a bunch of other nice. Awesome people. So yeah, the after parties were rocking. They were a lot of fun. It was so great being back in person. I mean, it was definitely bigger than RubyConf was. I almost preferred the size of RubyConf just because it was a little easier to spend quality time with people, but anytime I get to hang out with people in person, it's going to be awesome. So
sure. Yeah. I heard it was double what RubyConf was, 1,200 people or something.
I think it was just under 1,300 in attendance. I think they had, the crazy part was I heard, and this is unverified information, but I heard from someone that they had close to 1,400 register and then just not show up, a little over 100 people just not show up because of COVID stuff. Saying, hey, sorry, I tested positive, I can't make it. That is unfortunately the world we live in at the moment. I can't wait for it to be
Mm-hmm.
far enough in the rearview mirror that we're not really worried about that stuff anymore, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
like the seasonal flu garbage. But
Yep. Same.
we're getting there.
Same.
We are getting there. So
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So I definitely. Are you planning on going to a RubyConf?
oh yeah, I'm all ready.
Yeah,
I actually
cool.
before that I was able to snag a ticket to RailSAS, the conference that
right on.
Andrew Culver's putting on, and I'm pumped for that. That looks like a lot of fun. That looks
Nice.
like a good time. A lot of good people are going. He's got a lot of good speakers.
Yeah.
And he like is deliberately keeping it kind of small and tight. He really liked how Sin City Ruby was.
Mhm.
So it's 2 days, single track, and a lot of hallway track built into it. So a lot of socializing time. So
Nice.
sounds exhausting because socializing is
yeah.
not
Tiresome.
something
Yep.
I'm good at, and it's exhausting, but
Yeah.
I love that about conferences. I'm like, yeah, I work from home. I don't interact with humans for like
Right.
months at a time outside of
Yeah,
like playing
totally.
hockey. Then you go to a conference and you're like, all right, I'm done. I don't want to see you people at least for another month. Go home, recharge, get to go to another conference. Rock and roll.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'm
totally.
excited
Yeah,
that conferences are coming back.
Yeah. It's super cool, and that one it looks good. The hotel looks amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you going by chance?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, that's
No.
that you would have to fly for. I don't think you could drive to. I mean, you could. You could
I
drive
could.
to.
I've done it before. I don't think
Have
I
you
want to do
really?
that one anytime. Yeah.
No.
I used to play in a band, and we did a tour, like all
Okay.
West Coast, and I drove from here all the way out there and all the way
Right.
down. Mostly because our bass player was terrified. If he's not in his hometown, he doesn't want to be on the roads. Like he doesn't want to be behind the wheel. And I was
Okay.
like, I don't mind driving. I love driving. So
That's awesome though. That you got to tour.
Yeah.
How many cities did you hit?
oh man, I think it was like 20.
Wow. That's
Something like
awesome.
that.
That
It was
sounds
like a
so
month.
cool.
It was like a month long. It was great. Super
That's so
fun.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know where it was actually like really surprisingly nice to stop was Idaho. Have you ever been to Idaho?
I have not. Surprisingly, I haven't really been anywhere in the Midwest.
Not even no. Okay. All right.
No,
Never mind.
not even Oklahoma. I've not been, for the record, I've never actually even been to Oklahoma.
There you go. Good clarification there. I have been to Oklahoma.
Okay. You'll have to tell me about it sometime.
I'll leave it at that.
So
That's all there is to say.
Are the potatoes very good in Idaho?
They were at the time. I haven't been there in a number of years, so hopefully the crops are staying consistent.
Yeah.
But
So it was just nice because it was like small and clean and quiet, or just
and just beautiful.
surprised
Yeah,
you?
it surprised me. I don't know what I really expected, but I didn't expect it to be as beautiful and nice and peaceful as it was. But it was great. So
That's
if
awesome.
you're passing through, I would say don't just pass through. Go ahead and stop for a minute if you can.
Right.
But,
maybe RubyConf 2023. Maybe we can get them to talk Ruby Central into doing it in Idaho.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, I wonder how that schedule works. How far they plan out ahead of time.
I'm sure they already have it fairly well planned out, but
Mhm.
so I'm mostly joking. But yeah, I don't know how that works. That would be interesting to find out, like the decision
Yeah,
making
you should
process.
get somebody on. You should
Right?
get somebody on from there.
Yeah, if everybody doesn't know, Ruby Central is looking to add people to their board. So if this kind of stuff interests you and you are good at like planning these kinds of things out, and you want to get more involved with helping Rails and RubyConf be put on, then you should definitely reach out and see what you need to do to get qualified to be a nominee.
Mm-hmm.
I'll link
I
to
would
that.
agree with that.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, is there anything else before we wrap this up? Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, tell us about, touch on?
I will say, let's see, if anybody wants to help with that little side project I have of the porting the Laravel telescope into the Rails ecosystem, you're more than welcome to. Right now, I just have it as a Rails app that I'm working within that space of, and with the plan to extract it out to an engine of some sort.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's called Petri Dish. You can find it on my GitHub.
All right.
Yeah, I was trying to. I was like, okay. I was like, okay. Their Laravel telescope. I was gonna do like microscope, right? And then I
Right.
was like, "Oh, let me get a little bit more creative. What do you put under the microscope? Well, you put petri dishes, and then they have like
Sure.
specimens on them that you look at. So that's how the naming convention is right now. So
Okay.
yeah. So that's definitely open. If you want to come help out with that, don't be scared too, because I had up until this point I had no experience with the active support instrumentation stuff.
Okay.
Pretty easy to pick up. So all you juniors out there or new developers, please come on by. I'm happy to help out with whatever. Would love the contribution. But that's it's open to anyone and everyone if they want to come help out with that.
When you're working on that, are you kind of looking at how Laravel is doing it in PHP, or are you just kind of taking the ideas, features, and concepts of it and doing it within Ruby and Rails?
Yeah, I initially tried to look at all of their source code for how they were doing it, but I also don't want to, if I can avoid it, I don't want to have to ship like with migrations and add database tables to people's apps,
right?
Which is opposite of what is going on there.
Okay.
So that kind of cut that out of the equation kind of early on a little bit. So, and I don't know, I may end up going that route, but I'm really trying to make it super lightweight and not have it something, that takes up database space, because that database table could get pretty huge pretty quick if every time you're making a request or any kind of like job is kicking off or email gets sent, like that stuff's getting logged or will be, once that gets built out. So like that could get really huge really quick. So I don't want to have to like have people like constantly be clearing that database table or something else,
Yeah.
So I'm trying to work around it right now and not have any database tables, which has been an interesting thing to kind of deal with. I had some people give me some good advice on options to explore with that. So I think I might head there and, going forward with some of those approaches and just trying to see how it goes. But to get back to your question, for the most part, I'm kind of just looking at the UI that they have and kind of like, okay, I see what's going on here. Now let me take that and build it out how I need to for this, or how I envision it for my project operating. So kind of just solely UI influence right now.
Yeah.
But I may have to abandon that approach, and I might have to go ahead and do some database tables. I don't know. In which case I probably will be spying on their code and seeing what's going on more.
Right. Very cool. Very cool. Well, I'll link to that repository. I'll link to your whole GitHub, but that repository specifically in the show notes. Cool. And if you have a link to the cloud whitening, cloud brightening, cloud scrubbing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Cloud janitors stuff.
Yeah.
If you can send me a link to that, that will be an interesting read, and I'll definitely get that in the show notes.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely make sure to send that one. Yeah,
awesome.
I figured that would be a good one to share, kind of out of left field.
Yeah, that's a good one. That is probably on par with Nick Schwader's. I forget what the proper name of it was, but it was basically he had like a site where you could find hobbies that are dying.
Oh, right.
And, people who could, teach you the hobby or even potentially get funds for the hobby. And there was some interesting, I went down a rabbit hole with that one. There are some interesting hobbies that are dying and we don't even realize it. So this is just as much of left field as that one was, and super interesting. So I'm really excited to dive into that one.
I need to go check that out too. I'd be curious to see what dying hobbies are. They called? Are they endangered hobbies? Is that what you refer to them as? I don't know what you would call them.
I think they actually have levels. They have levels of like, this one's endangered, or this one's like, sort of like how they do with animals, right?
Right.
So there's a few different, I think what was it called? It was called Heritage Hobbies or something. I'm actually just going to pull it up.
Oh, interesting.
Why not? Heritage Crafts. So the Heritage Crafts website It's a UK, I believe it's a UK based thing, but it's global. Like, because there are some things like, for example, barometer making you cannot do in the UK because it's illegal or impossible to get, or something about the mercury. Totally fine in the US.
Right, yeah.
There's just no one actually doing it, and there's a ton. There's a lot of really interesting hobbies on there. So I don't know if cloud cleaning is considered a hobby just yet. Maybe at some point we'll have that on the list. Yeah. Still, I'm still super interested to read about that. That's
maybe you can go vacation to like volunteer to clean a cloud for a day.
Right.
Or like, what's like the thing they do on the highways where you can like own a road or adopt a highway. That's it. There you go.
There you go.
Adopt a cloud
or like the beach cleanups where you go and you like clean up all the trash with them. Someday we'll be able to clean clouds. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. I'm into it.
Super cool. Well, thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it. Before we get out of here, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. This was a blast. I'm happy we finally made it happen. We've been talking about it for a while.
You are a hard man to get a hold of. Well, not to get a hold of. You're actually very easy to get a hold of. Just a hard man to schedule with.
Yeah,
it's like you're busy or
schedule.
Something.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Let's see. On the Twitter, you can find me. I believe I'm at Collin_Jilbert. I think that. It's different on GitHub. CJILBERT 504 on GitHub. Those are probably the best places to find me. Other than that, Discord would be very close.
Awesome.
Second or third.
Very cool. All right. I will get that all in the show notes. And thanks again, man, for coming on. This was an absolute blast.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I had a fun time too, man.
All right, man. See you later.
Cool. See you. Take care.